Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I hate to dwell on Carvana, but these people just can't get out of their own way. Sue sent me a note and said, Steve, check out the story from mystateline.com, also widely reported elsewhere. But Carvana has admitted default in Illinois, and they are now once again allowed to sell used cars in exchange for more regulation. Now, normally, I'm not a fan of more government regulation. But I've mentioned before that all 50 states in America have got rules on how you title, register, and so on vehicles so that you can operate them legally on the roadway, and also you can buy them and sell them. And so I've got friends who are dealers and brokers and so on, and they have to deal with this. And I've also bought and sold cars myself. And I know that if I buy a car from somebody in a used vehicle transaction, someone's got to fill out a form and take it to the Secretary of State's office, apply for a new title. Title gets issued. That paperwork's got to get done. They've loosened up the rules recently on that, and they actually allow you to have a couple days before you have to have the car registered. You can actually drive the car home, for instance, from where you bought it, things like that. But generally speaking, the paperwork's got to get done, and it's got to get done in a fairly short window of time. And I've explained this many, many times. It has to do with how quickly the state wants their money. So when Carvana came to Michigan, they encountered trouble because they had a couple different locations, and one location in particular apparently wasn't getting their paperwork done fast enough. And a lot of people said, well, Steve, isn't COVID causing a nightmare with paperwork in Lansing? Yes and no, it was at one point, but my understanding is they got that straightened out now. I mean, COVID was started a while back as far as that goes. So I've talked to my friends in the business, and they go, yeah, there was a time when it was all messed up. Not anymore. So in Michigan, they had a real problem because the one location, the state came in, did an audit, said, you guys have got issues. They were supposed to straighten up their act. They didn't. The state came back in. But this same transaction now has happened in several places. And in Illinois, they apparently had gotten shut down, and they got in a fight with the state over it. And then they finally said, okay, fine, we'll take the following steps. So if you let us sell cars again. So John Clark writes this article, headlined, Carvana admits default in Illinois, allowed to sell used cars in exchange for more regulation. Online used car retailer Carvana has entered into a settlement agreement with Illinois after its license was suspended several times over questionable business practices. So the settlement agreement presumably means the parties sat down, came up with an agreement they both agreed to, that's the state and Carvana, and they both signed this document. So if you say, well, I'm sure Carvana doesn't agree to this. Well, they signed an agreement, which implies that they agree to it. Illinois Secretary of State announced the agreement yesterday. The admission by Carvana demonstrates what we knew all along. Carvana was violating the law in a manner that was harmful to Illinois consumers. Under my administration, I'll do everything to ensure that proper safeguards are in place that protect Illinois consumers regardless of how they purchase a vehicle. Illinois began an investigation of Carvana in February of 2022 after customers complained that the company was issuing temporary out-of-state registration permits and failing to transfer titles of ownership in a timely manner as required by the state's vehicle code. So they'll tell you in Michigan, you buy a car, you'll get the title within so many days. And it's not that long. And that's true in most states, although it might vary how long that time period is. But I've heard of this story more than once, and not just in Illinois, where somebody says, I bought a car from Carvana, it came with a temporary tag. The tag expired. I hadn't gotten my plates yet. Call Carvana up and say, what do I do? And they said, oh, we'll send you another tag. And they send them a temporary tag from another state. Now, if you're driving along in the state of Michigan with an Arizona tag on your car, you might not get pulled over for that. But the question is that legal? If you bought your car at a dealership in Michigan and they gave you an Arizona tag, would that be legal? I'm simply asking the question because I think you know the answer. The agreement calls for Carvana to follow Illinois law, surrender its $250,000 bond, and allow for pre- and post-licensing Secretary of State police inspections to ensure it remains in compliance. Believe it or not, almost all of that is already in the law. So it calls for them to adhere to Illinois law, which they were supposed to be doing and they're supposed to in the future. Allow for pre- and post-licensing inspections, and that's already in the law. and then surrender their bond. Now, that $250,000 bond being surrendered is actually a big deal. Okay, most dealerships have got to post a bond with the state, and that assures that if somebody has a problem with that dealership and files a lawsuit, the dealership can't just yank the plug on the operation and walk away scot-free. But a $250,000 bond is a pretty big bond, and that's being surrendered. Presumably that's a settlement, meaning that, well, we're going to, in essence, fine you $250,000, give us the money. Because I'm suspecting they've got to replace that bond with another one. But the pre- and post-licensing inspections is extremely important to understand. That already exists. In most states, somebody from the state, whether it's Secretary of State's office or DMV or whatever you have, most states have a situation where someone from the state can walk in unannounced onto any car dealer's lot, new cars, used cars, broker, doesn't matter, walk in and go, hi, I'm from the state. I'm here to see how you're doing. Can I please walk your lot with you and make a note of all the cars on your lot? Oh, and may I now see your police book? And your police book is where you keep track of your inventory to show all your cars on your lot. And there needs to be what we call a congruence between the two. All the cars on your lot need to be in your police book. And there should not be any cars in your police book that are not on your lot. Because the moment you sell a car, you've got to indicate from the police book, this car has left my inventory. The second a car comes into your inventory, it's got to go in the police book. And as noted before, this has all to do with money. So that a lot of times in the old days, somebody would sell a car and go, oh, we really need that money to pay for this. When we sell a car tomorrow, we'll use that money to pay the taxes on that car and this car. State doesn't want you doing that. And yes, there is a parallel to one of the problems that was a plot point in the movie Fargo regarding cars on the lot versus cars that had actually been sold and what had been reported. Although that was a bank, I believe, with the financing that was the floor plan financing that was chasing the guy around at the dealership for that. But the Secretary of State's office in Illinois has the right to send a representative out anytime to walk onto the lot and go, hi, I'm here to look at your books and look at your cars and to poke around a little bit. The Secretary emphasized that Carvana's actions of putting unregistered license plates on vehicles jeopardized Illinois consumers who were at risk of being ticketed by law enforcement for driving without proper title and registration. Because a police officer could pull you over and say, oh, I notice you have a temporary tag out of Arizona, and we're here in Michigan. Where do you live? Michigan. Why do you have an Arizona tag on your car? That was given to me by the car dealer. What car dealer? Where I bought the car. Oh, they're in Arizona? No, they're in Novi. Yeah, that would be a problem because, again, you would get the ticket for that, not the dealership. And there's other potential problems. I always wondered if your insurance company might try to weasel out of a claim and go, well, your car wasn't properly registered. You told us it was. Meanwhile, the head of Carvana's corporate affairs issued a statement saying, for the past 8 years, we have been an economic engine in the state by providing Illinoisans with an unmatched e-commerce experience that includes great selection, home delivery, and a 7-day money-back guarantee. And today's agreement with the Secretary of State allows us to move forward in our journey to become the largest automotive retailer. We look forward to working with the Secretary to ensure customers continue having access to the best car buying and selling experience possible. And I salute them for making that positive statement. In the past, there were a couple occasions where they made statements about how cumbersome and archaic these paperwork rules were, and they should be done away with, and they should be allowed to, in essence, not have to abide by them. So they have written a much friendlier statement here. So in addition to its online business, Carvana operates a car vending machine in Oak Brook. The car vending machine, of course, one of the most visible things that Carvana did. It's a gimmick, but it's kind of cool. I admit, I actually thought it was kind of cool. I've never used one, but, hey, I've always wondered if you could shake it and get a car out of it. But that's an old joke, and I apologize for it. But they're back in business in Illinois. There you go. The real question is, if you were to go to a website that tracks stock values and look what's happened to Carvana's stock value in the last couple of years, you'll notice that it was way up here and all of a sudden it goes way down there. And, I'm not a big stock and bond kind of guy, but when I see things heading south, generally speaking, unless it's me going to a warmer climate because it's snowing today. Generally speaking, I understand that that's not good. So again, I'm not here to discuss their business future. I'm just simply pointing out that they are now allowed to operate in Illinois in exchange for more regulation and surrendering a $250,000 bond. And apparently the agreement says that they admit to some faults, which they say they'll straighten out in the future. So there you go. Questions or comments, put them below. Thank you, Sue, for sending that. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Acknowledge that you are special. There's no one quite like you, just like everyone else.